Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Alexa's vulnerability. Okay, so this is something that I'd never thought of before, but now that I have, I'm totally freaked out. Taylor and I don't have an Alexa, we have a Google Home, but truly the same thing applies, so everybody listen up. Basically, if you're like us and love to find some sort of like white noise or meditation music sort of thing to fall asleep to, you might want to double check exactly what it is that you're listening to. Of course, since we started introducing these AI assistants into our homes, people have been worried about misuse and abuse with them, and there are some pretty sneaky ways people could be doing this. A study in the New York Times, which was published in 2018, showed that Alexa had some pretty crazy capabilities and that people might be able to hide secret messages to Alexa, say in something like white noise, or even in just your average YouTube video. Don't worry, it's not this one. I wouldn't keep secrets from you like that. I'm an open book. Basically, the concern is that these commands could be imperceptible to the human ear, but they are speaking Alexa's language. These commands could have your Alexa doing things like going into airplane mode or opening a website, all without your knowledge at all, which is obviously super concerning. Of course, this isn't the fault of Alexa, she is just out here doing what she's told, but it's certainly concerning when you think about the amount of people out there who genuinely try to cause harm to others. With these devices, we could easily be exploited with this very open vulnerability. In our number 9 spot today, we have The Scream. So all the way back on part 1 of this series, we talked about how a few years ago Amazon admitted that many Alexa owners reported their Alexa devices suddenly bursting into very creepy laughter, even totally unprompted, which is obviously horrible and terrifying, but this might be even worse than that. Back in February of 2018, an Alexa owner by the name of Farhad Manju shared a story about how his Alexa totally terrified him and his wife one night. The pair were getting into bed, getting all settled in and winding down, when he noticed that, without a prompt from either of the pair, their Alexa lit up with the blue ring light, signifying that it was listening or doing something. Again, no one said the Alexa wake word or anything like that, and suddenly their Alexa started to emit this absolutely horrific sound. A sound that he described as being a quote wail, like a child screaming in a horror movie dream. That sounds like the last thing anyone needs when you're just trying to get some good old shut-eye. Like you're about to get no sleep, only nightmares after that. Amazon offered to investigate the situation, but little results were yielded. Surprisingly, the pair decided to keep their Alexa because they just couldn't give up on the convenience of it. In our number 8 spot today, we have Alexa history. This is a reminder to always check your Alexa history because you just might be surprised as to what you find. A few years ago, a woman named Rachel Metz was just casually checking her history on the device. There wasn't a particular reason, but she definitely was glad that she did because she quickly realized that her device had been listening to and recording her private conversations. She explained that, quote, "It's heard me complain to my dad about something work-related, chide my toddler about eating dinner, and talk to my husband. The kinds of normal everyday things you say at home when you think no one else is listening." This experience actually led to her writing an article for MIT Technology Review about the experience, and a ton of people not only agreed with her judgment that the technology was quite creepy, but also it affirmed a lot of skeptics' beliefs. A lot of people felt quite justified in their judgments of the AI assistant, and after hearing Rachel's story, they felt quite solidified in their beliefs, and I mean, can we really blame them at all? In our number 7 spot today, we have The Scary Movie. This story comes from a Reddit user that was replying to a prompt asking about people's creepiest Alexa stories. The user wrote, quote, "My husband was away for the weekend and I had a girlfriend over to watch scary movies. Right at the scariest climax of the movie, every single light in my house turned on 100%, then everything went completely black." Of course that's so frightening. Did the movie unleash some sort of demon? Is the killer really in the house? My adrenaline would be so high. I'd be so on edge. That can't be just a coincidence. And also, what does this have to do with your Alexa? Well, the user continues their post and finishes it by saying, quote, "So there we were, too scared to move, while my husband, halfway across the country, was drunkenly showing off, 'Look, I can control the lights in my house from my phone.'" Well, that definitely explains that. I guess just remind your spouse, partner, roommate, friend, whoever shares an Alexa system with you, that just because they're not home doesn't mean you're not. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Haunted Alexa. This Reddit post comes from the user Goblin Marketeer, which is a great username. name, and they write, quote, "I have an Echo Dot because the original owner thought it was haunted. She would randomly start talking, usually saying, 'Sorry, I'm having trouble understanding you right now,' to a totally silent room, or giving the weather for Cincinnati when they live in New York, when no one asked, or offering to call a contact from her list, again to a completely silent room, and the contacts always started with S. The last straw before it was tossed in a box and given to me was something like, quote, 'Self-destruct code not given. Self-destruct aborted.' Well, that's terrifying for sure. At this point, the new owner isn't sure if the Alexa itself is haunted, or if it was just the house that it came from that is holding the creepy spirit. Either way, that Alexa is definitely holding on to something sinister. In our number 5 spot today, we have the nightmare. This post was made by Reddit user MeJock, and they wrote, quote, "My wife took the kids to visit her grandmother for a week. We had just moved into a new house and bought some furniture, so I stayed home to spend the week building / mounting the furniture to get the house ready for the fam. Anyway, on the first night after they left, I was mounting some shelves and cabinets in one of the bedrooms when I suddenly hear this loud and very weird sound coming from downstairs, kind of like a scream. I assumed it was the cat howling to get outside, then suddenly I heard it again. I froze and listened. There were a few seconds of silence, and then I heard it again. After a few seconds, I realized that it wasn't the cat. I recognized the sound as being the voice of my baby. My mind started racing. My kids and wife are in another country right now, so how the hell am I hearing the sound of my baby loudly emanating from downstairs? After a minute or so of thinking, my super paranoid mind came to the conclusion that either A, someone has hacked into our laptop and is remotely viewing videos of our kid, or even worse, B, while I've been up here listening to music, some creep broke in and is sitting down there at our table watching videos of our kids. I decided to, quote, man up and check it out. So my heart pounding in my chest, I grab my hammer and start creeping down the stairs. Then I pause, thinking that I should grab my phone just in case I need to make a quick call to the police. Mind you, all the while I'm hearing the sounds of my children from downstairs and it is creeping me out. I reach into my pocket, pull out my phone, and then I realize what was happening. Somehow I basically butt opened, similar to butt dialed, my videos on my phone, and they had started playing in my pocket. My phone was paired to the Echo, and thus the audio from the videos was being played via the Echo. Ah, the good old Bluetooth connection that we forgot was on. Always a terrifying experience, but this one just might take the cake when it comes to full-blown horror. In our number 4 spot today, we have Alexa Freestyle. I can imagine that many of us at some point or another have had to endure knowing someone, or at least knowing of someone, who aspires to have some kind of a rap career, despite potentially not being cut out for it. And if you're an Alexa owner, it looks like you might know another. This strange Alexa story comes from a user on Tumblr, of all places, and they posted about how one day something very weird happened as they and their family were listening to a Frank Sinatra song on their Alexa. It isn't quite clear how or why, but for some reason, in the middle of the tune, Alexa decided to turn off the crooner and, totally unprompted, try her hand at the rap game. Now, some other Alexa users have confirmed that Alexa does in fact rap, but usually in response to a command and not just on her own accord. I guess be careful what music you're listening to around your AI, because apparently you might be stuck listening to an Alexa Freestyle. In our number 3 spot today, we have Alexa Help, posted to Reddit by the user Sluzella. This story reads, quote, "One night about 2 months ago, I was visiting my parents, and my mom and I were sitting in the living room reading. Dad is at work, brother is at school, house is completely silent. All of a sudden, we hear our Alexa from the kitchen go, 'Help!' in the weirdest static/gravel voice at full volume. We both, of course, jump and stare at each other. Then Alexa does it again. We go into the kitchen and the Alexa is activated, and that light blue light, which usually faces the direction of whoever is speaking to it, is facing into the dark corner of the kitchen. My mom asks, 'Alexa, are you okay?' The Alexa totally shuts off. 'Alexa?' She turns back on and in her completely normal voice at a regular volume does her standard, 'Hi, what can I help you with?' Or whatever she says. She hasn't done anything that creepy since, but according to my parents, she will randomly turn on like she's being addressed, or just start reading random facts or the weather, even if the house is totally silent and nothing could have triggered her. Totally creeps me out, and I refuse to get one for my apartment because of this. In our number 2 spot today, we have Voice Not Recognized. This story comes from the Reddit user CRB2519, and it is short but super effective, like a one-line horror story. All they write is, quote, "It said, 'Voice not recognized.' but I didn't say anything, and I live alone. Either Alexa is speaking to herself now and doesn't even recognize her own voice, or she really is out here talking to ghosts. I remember that on previous parts of this series, we spoke about how there are people out there who truly believe that our Alexa devices have the capability to see into different realms, including ones that may or may not have some sort of paranormal entities. Could this just be another sign of that? Is this only proving the conspiracy theories out there? Or is this just one rather terrifying glitch? Either way, I can assure you that if this happened to me, Alexa would be swiftly getting unplugged. In our number 1 spot today, we have Wordle. Okay, so we know that Alexa just likes to randomly do stuff, whether it's the creepy laugh, screaming, and even that time when it started listing off local cemeteries. This is along those lines, but it gave someone quite a fright in the middle of the night. Basically, the Reddit user Mild Hot Sauce explained that in the middle of the night, their Alexa decided to do the creepiest thing, totally unprompted. With no wake word and no one even speaking at all, their Alexa decided to do them the horrifying favor of defining the word kidnapping. Personally, I think that one is pretty self-explanatory, but apparently Alexa does not. I'm sure the Alexa ended up getting unplugged for the rest of the night, if not for the rest of eternity, because how do you recover from that? Honestly. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the vulnerability. According to Forbes, there was a company called Checkmarks who found quite the vulnerability a few years ago when it came to Alexa devices. Basically, the company works to test the security of different devices, and when they were running Alexa through the checks, they found something that might turn your assistant into a device that just listens to and records every single thing you say. Basically, Alexa has a function where it listens for follow-up commands from the user. What I mean by this is, should you set an alarm, Alexa might reply and ask you if you meant AM or PM, and it's during this sort of follow-up period where the vulnerability shows itself. The team was able to gain access quite easily by installing malicious code into what would seem like an innocent app. In this case, it was a calculator. After doing this in a normal Alexa, there would only be a certain list of phrases that would have the device listening for a follow-up question, but now with this malicious code, they found a way for Alexa to listen for the follow-up, but without any word, meaning they could essentially tap in anytime they wanted. Apparently the good news is that Amazon has fixed this in response to the hack. They said, quote, "Customer trust is important to us and we take security and privacy seriously. We have put mitigations in place for detecting this type of skill behavior," reported by Checkmarks. While it seems safe, hearing these sorts of possibilities does make you pretty nervous about what could be hiding behind your Alexa. In our number 9 spot today, we have the listeners. If you own an Alexa device, you can download this thing, and then once you have it, you can ask Alexa to ask the listeners, and something spooky happens. Amazon describes it as, quote, "an experiment in language art that provides, if you simply keep asking to continue, many fragments of both scripted and improvised speech in an intriguing, emergent narrative. You will never hear the listeners say exactly the same thing twice, but the listeners is not a chatbot or an AI. They are more of a drama or a simple game. Get started with Alexa, ask the listeners, and then continue, go on, or try something like, I am filled with joy, or what are you feeling?" The listeners will suggest ways to transact with them. You might also want to ask them, let the other voices speak. What in the actual hell did I just read? That sounds absolutely frightening. And to be honest, all of the reviews on Amazon say the exact same thing. People who experienced it said it scared the heck out of them, so I think I'll take their word for it. In our number 8 spot today, we have the argument. There was a Reddit thread a few years ago that prompted the question, what is your creepy Alexa story? A user named Meat Macho replied to the thread, and they definitely delivered quite the story. Basically, they explained that one day they and their wife were having an argument. Of course, no one is having a good time, and it's definitely not a time to be playing tricks on each other, so neither of them could explain what happened next. They wrote, quote, "Wife and I were arguing about something, no clue what it was, but it was getting a little heated. I don't know what Alexa thought she heard, but she suddenly interjected with, why don't we change the subject? It was just so unexpected and relevant enough to be creepy. We both heard it, and we both still talk about it years later. There was nothing in the app logs. I guess Alexa isn't just a trusty assistant, she's she's also a marriage counselor. While she may have worked to possibly stop the fight between these two, I'm sure she also instilled a new fear that neither of them knew that they had before. In our number 7 spot today, we have Are You Recording Me? So we've all had to call into some sort of customer service line where we get the automated message, or the person on the other end tells us that the call may be recorded for quality assurance purposes or training or whatever it is. It's a law thing, they gotta let you know. In fact, if you ask Siri this question, are you recording me, she'll get kinda confused and respond that she's unsure of what you mean, but she could do an internet search for you. Alexa, on the other hand, she's not so slick with her secrets, at least not in the past, because some users reported something creepy happening after asking Alexa the same question. Well, I'm sure all of the legalities to this one are located in the terms and conditions and all of that good stuff. It doesn't make it any less creepy that when some people ask Alexa if she was recording them, Alexa just didn't respond at all and suddenly shut off. She's just out here ignoring people. She's dodging questions, and that only makes me have more questions. I'm not even sure if this is enough to get me to read the terms and conditions though. It's the most often lie I've ever told. In our number 6 spot today, we have the greetings. So apparently there are rumors that Alexa can speak to people that have already passed away. If that's really true, we don't talk about that enough. Of course, my brain was immediately skeptical upon hearing this information, but some people swear it's true. Apparently, if you ask Alexa to greet people, some have experienced her coming back to them with the name of a deceased loved one. Another person experienced their Alexa without being asked anything, and only when they turned on one specific light in the house would say hello and then the name of their grandmother who had passed 3 years prior. This person was incredibly confused and totally freaked out by this because it didn't just happen once, it happened multiple times. They explained that they also didn't have an Alexa during the time that she was alive, and that she also doesn't believe she ever spoke her grandmother's name out loud in front of the Alexa. Maybe this was just some weird coincidence, but it certainly sounds like Miss Alexa is giving off some major Ouija board vibes. In our number 5 spot today, we have the spy device. This crazy Alexa story is so freaky that I just had to share it with you guys. This story starts off in the midst of the storyteller's mom going through a divorce, which we all know can be a messy situation. So the ex-husband in this situation had apparently planted an insane amount of hidden cameras throughout the house that they had to search for to find once the pair had split up. There were entrances and exits, the living and dining room, the hallways, the bedroom, everywhere in the house was being monitored. Then they found out that he had bugged her laptop so as to be able to have remote access to it, and then when she took her car in for an oil change, the mechanic found a tracking device that had been placed on it. This was all found during the separation era, but once the divorce process actually started, things got even creepier. They wrote, quote, "Once the divorce started and he officially moved out, we scanned the entire house for bugs and didn't find anything. So we really freaked out when he started calling, texting, emailing her, complimenting her outfits, asking how her friends were as they were in the house, asking how her trip to the store was, and other really odd things he couldn't have known about. As it turns out, this guy somehow connected his phone to the Alexa dot beforehand, and he was now using it to record whoever was close enough to the Alexa to be picked up on the mic, and at this point he was still able to access the laptop and its camera." How absolutely horrifying is that? He was literally using the Alexa to spy on them. It's scary, it's disgusting, and it definitely makes you question every single person who might be connected to your devices. In our number 4 spot today, we have the spooky story. You can ask Alexa to tell you a scary story and she will happily oblige. There isn't really a catch with this one, to be perfectly honest. If you want a scary story, you'll receive one, so just make sure you're really ready and in the mood before asking your assistant for a fright. This can be an awesome tool for people looking for a spooky tale, for anyone in the home who needs some chilling entertainment, but beware, these stories can be a little too scary for some. There was a video posted to the internet in October of last year where some people at a sleepover asked Alexa to tell them a spooky Halloween tale, and things very quickly went awry. They were all way too terrified of the story Alexa told next and couldn't get the Alexa to stop. They were all sufficiently freaked out and reacted in a way that I know will be a core memory for the years to come, and they definitely learned not to ask Alexa this question. In our number 3 spot today, we have the local spots. This is a creepy story that took place back in 2018 and happened to the owner of an Amazon Echo, which of course features Alexa. Basically, this person explained that they had returned home one night and everything was fine. Nothing out of the ordinary happened at all, until, totally unprompted, their Alexa just started talking. This was definitely weird, but things turned super creepy when they realized what it was that their Alexa was saying. As it turns out, their Alexa, out of the blue, just started listing off local cemeteries and funeral homes to them. How eerie is that? This story was posted to Twitter by the user at HeyIt'sCamo, and they finished off their tweet by saying, quote, "I'd rather it laugh at me, TBH. Me too, Camo. Me too." Apparently their theory behind this one is that maybe their Alexa wants them dead because they play the same Spotify playlist over and over again. In our number 2 spot today, we have 20 questions. So I didn't know this, but apparently you can play 20 questions with Alexa, and she is also frighteningly good at it. A little too good sometimes, however, and that is exactly what prompted the Reddit user PelPel4 to ask the Reddit question, "What is your creepy Alexa story?" The user decided to ask the internet this question after a strange 20 questions with Alexa encounter that they and their wife had. They explained, quote, "My wife and I were playing 20 questions and, spoiler alert, our answer was pig. We got through until the end and Alexa guessed Basenji." Now, I don't know how many of you know what a Basenji is, but they're a very rare barkless dog, and I happen to have one. We've bought some Basenji themed things off of Amazon before, so it's either that or she's listening. But I mean, come on, she didn't even say dog, straight to Basenji. Anyone else have similar stories? That would definitely be pretty unsettling, to say the least. Not that a pig and a dog are like the most unsimilar things, it's just how she was so specific with this breed. It must have been stored in there somewhere, right? In our number 1 spot today, we have Don't Go. This creepy Alexa story comes from the Reddit user MyThaiGuy72, and they said, quote, "I got woken up at 4 a.m. this morning to Alexa repeating some incoherent phrase over and over. She was saying something like, 'Don't go into the house,' but I really couldn't fully understand it. It was sort of a mumble. By the time I came downstairs, she had repeated it about 4 or 5 times. I listened 1 or 2 more times to try and figure out what the hell it was saying exactly, but never could. I just unplugged the damn thing and I have no plans of turning it back on." Is it just me, or does that sound like Alexa was watching some kind of a horror movie? Like, "Don't go into the house." It's so terrifying, especially to hear in the middle of the night. I don't blame this person for unplugging the thing and leaving it somewhere to be forgotten about.
Starting us off at number 10 is Agares. Believed to be the demon who causes and controls earthquakes in Christian theology, Agares is considered to be a Duke of Hell with over 30 legions of demons under his command, and the control of the entire eastern side of hell. I mean, he just doesn't seem like someone you'd want to mess with. Now, all that being said, he does have one of the strangest appearances ever described. Apparently, he appears as an old man riding on the back of a crocodile, carrying a hawk on his fist, which is incredibly specific and equally unsettling. Like, can the crocodile attack you? Or is that part just for show? I mean, honestly, either way, if I saw a demon ride in on the back of a giant crocodile, I would not be looking forward to what came next. Plus, remember, he can also cause earthquakes, so even if you aren't cursed or mauled by his crocodile sidekick, he could probably just kill you by starting an earthquake that sent you straight to hell. Next up at number 9, Rakshasas. With the origins from Hindu mythology, Rakshasas are a terrifying breed of shape-shifting demons with the ability to reveal themselves to you in almost any way they choose. Although their true form is usually described as large and beast-like, if they so choose, they can appear as animals, as monsters, or even in the form of beautiful women if they really want to throw you off. In fact, one of the most famous of the demons, Putana, is well known for her attempt to kill the little Krishna by offering him milk from her poisoned breast. They also are known to prey predominantly at night, waiting until the sun goes down to come out of the shadows in the cemeteries they rest in, before feasting on the flesh of anyone they can find. Strangely, another sign they are near is they will suck all the cows dry of their milk. Now, the sort of good news is that apparently, not all Rakshasas are created equally. Some are more evil than others, but still, I wouldn't try my chances, cause generally speaking, they're all pretty bad. Next up at number 8, the Jin Kaninki. If Japanese folklore has taught me anything, it's that there is no shortage of terrifying creatures within Japanese culture. And apparently the same goes for their demons. The Jin Kaninki are said to be the spirits of evil people who have since died, and like many other demons, have a strong strong taste for the flesh and blood of humans. However, unlike some of the others on this list, the Jinkininki prefer the taste of corpses, so they tend to hide in cemeteries, only revealing themselves when they think that no one else is around. But I have to say, the most interesting and strange thing about these demons is that unlike others of their realm, they apparently seem to hate themselves for their flesh-hungry tendencies. And not only do they have a deep-seated self-loathing streak, they hate all of their kind as well. Said to be able to alternate between the physical form of a normal human and their disgusting flesh-devouring demon side, there is no clear description of what they're supposed to look like, only that it's supposed to be indescribably terrifying. Now, the sort of good news about the Jinkininki is that they will only eat the dead, so you are safe from being attacked by one. However, many believe that even witnessing one of these demons in their evil form can cause you to die on the spot out of sheer fear, so you still can't really win. Next up at number 7, Aseg. With origins dating back to the ancient Sumerian civilization during the Mesopotamia era, Aseg is one freaky demon you do not want to get to know. First off, it's said he appears so horrendous that his presence alone has the capability to boil fish alive in their own river. I'll be honest, I don't totally get how that connects, but still, it would be wildly horrifying to watch a river boil and see all the fish rise to the surface, so I won't question it. The next horrible thing about this giant, three-legged, three-armed, necklace, multiple-eyed creature is that he's accompanied by an entire army of rock demon offspring that were created by his union with the mountains themselves. So because of their half mountain, half demon origins, they are virtually indestructible, just as he is. Lastly, it's said he will kill any human with a fever or head disease. Even something as small as a headache could make you a target to his evil doings. So unless you're looking to get ripped apart by a giant rock man and his army of rock babies, just keep away from anything that could summon him your way. Coming in at number 6, Abaddon. According to the Old Testament, Abaddon generally refers to a place of ruin or destruction. However, in the New Testament, it seems to have taken on a slightly different and even more frightening personification. The demon Abaddon, whose name, as we've covered, translates to the Destroyer, is just as terrible as you might imagine. Generally depicted as a frightening winged creature, Abaddon is said to rule over a bottomless pit filled with an army of locusts who can torment anyone at his command. I mean, doesn't that just sound like a horrifying capability? What's interesting about this demon is that there is actually some debate around who Abaddon truly sides with. Some say he's an antichrist, a follower of Satan, or maybe even Satan himself because of his overall cruelties. But in some literature, he is seen more as a king sent from God, as he specifically targeted his army of locusts on those who did not have the symbol of God across their forehead. However, that being said, no matter if he is an angel or a demon, I would much rather not get anywhere near him. Coming in at number 5 is Rangda. According to Balinese mythology, Rangda is one of the most feared demons out there. For starters, she is known as the evil demon queen of the Layaks, which, if you aren't familiar with, are essentially ghost-like figures from Bali who during the day can appear as human to blend in, but at night show their true form, breaking free from their human bindings in search for pregnant women and suck their blood. Really, it's very charming. Rangda herself is said to be just as bloodthirsty as her followers, but her appetite is even darker. She quite literally thirsts for her revenge on the human race in the form of eating and devouring unsuspecting little ones in the night. Usually depicted as a grotesque old woman in the nude with large fangs, unkempt hair, and a giant tongue, it doesn't take much for this demon to come down and ruin your life. So if I were you, I would stay away from mentioning her name to Alexa, cause you just never know what could bring her your way. Next up at number 4 is Akamana. This demon comes from the Iranian religion of Zoroastrianism and is quite possibly the most manipulative one out there. Said to be the demon of sensual desire, Akamana is believed to be the inherent cause of evil intent, evil thinking, and evil actions. So essentially, if you've ever done a bad thing or had a bad thought, apparently that was on this guy. But what makes him incredibly terrifying is not only his capability to manipulate the minds of humans and trick them into performing evil acts, he also possesses the ability to somehow use people's good deeds to perform evil, meaning even a good deed done on Earth could be manipulated by Akamana and have terrible consequences you don't even know about. So I guess that means you are never truly safe from his wrath. Often described as being the true son of Satan himself, Akamana is regarded as the most violent demon to ever be born into the depths of hell, whose only true desire is to destroy everything and everyone in his path. So for very obvious reasons, stay as far away from this demon as you can. Next up at number 3, Dandelion. Said to be the commander of 36 legions of spirits, Dandelion is a terrifying demon with the power to literally ruin your life. Eerily described as having the form of a man with many countenances, meaning many faces, it's said he possessed all men and women's faces. Now, whether that means he can shape-shift his face into whatever he pleases, or whether that means he has a ton of different faces on his person at all times is a little foggy, but either of those options sound horrifying, so it's a lose-lose no matter what. Believe it or not, that's not even the worst part. It's said that Dandelion's greatest power is his ability to control your mind, as according to writings, he knoweth ye thoughts of all men and women and can change them at his will. So if you somehow make your way into his radar, he could literally control your mind, and from there, who knows what he could make you do. Strangely, it's also said he can cause love, which may not sound as evil as his other abilities, but he's literally manipulating his victims' minds and forcing them into a life together, taking away any semblance of free will, which to me is one of the most terrifying things I can think of. Coming in at number 2, Asmodeus. Considered by some to be the worst of the demons, Asmodeus, also referred to as the Prince of Hell, is often depicted as a demon of lust and wrath who will not hesitate to kill anything in his path. Unless, that is, you are familiar with his oddly specific Achilles heel, which of course I'm going to tell you about, even though you should still not mess around with demons. So as the story goes in the book of Tobit, there is a young woman named Sarah who very much wants to be married. Sarah finds a man, they get engaged, then get married, but right before the moment they are about to consummate the marriage, Asmodeus shows up and slays her beloved. Now, one time would be bad enough, but for sweet Sarah, who just wants a husband, Asmodeus kills her next 7 husbands in the exact same way. But on the 8th try, she ends up marrying a man named Tobias, who shares with Sarah what the Archangel Raphael told him, Asmodeus's weakness. So on their wedding night, as expected, the evil killer demon arrives ready to slay her 8th husband. But this time, Tobias tosses a fish's heart and liver onto some coals, causing a giant waft of smoke that apparently makes Asmodeus scamper off. Now, even knowing that knowledge, I don't typically have fish heart and liver on hand, let alone can I set them on a bed of hot coals, so I would still very much be in great danger if this demon ever paid me a visit. And last up in our number 1 spot today is Moloch. Since the medieval days, the bullheaded Minotaur demon Moloch has been a widely feared entity that anyone with their head screwed on straight would want nothing to do with. That being said, depending on who you asked or at what point of history you're studying, some writings depicted him as a deity. To the Canaanites, for example, it's been suggested that they offered up their young as a sacrifice to Moloch, who they considered a god. However, as the world shifted and changed, the sentiment surrounding what some now call the cult of Moloch swiftly shifted, and just like any cult to the outside world, the leader was not what you would call a cool guy. In the book of Leviticus, as well as many other religious texts, he is not spoken of highly. In fact, it's mentioned that anyone who offered to give up their offspring to him would be stoned to death for their sins. To be fair, he is a demon that feasts on the flesh of little ones, so I mean, that kind of checks out for me. And if people really were throwing their own flesh and blood into pits of fire in order to please what they believe to be their god, let's just call it a fair consequence for their insane actions. So with all that in mind, just do yourself a favor and leave this demon alone, or the repercussions could literally be deadly.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the Chuck Lagoon. This lagoon was the site of one of the main bases for Japan during the war, but in 1944 the United States launched an attack on it. During this, 60 ships were sunk, around 250 planes were brought down, and it is likely that researchers knew about the significance of this area, but we didn't really get a good look at it for some 70 years. A photographer who goes by the name of Super Jolly went down to this less than jolly area to snap photos of everything that can be seen down there. He called this shoot one of the scariest dives he's ever done in his life, and I can completely understand why. The area is filled with skulls, gas masks, and bullets, and many of the artifacts down here are extremely well preserved, which is great for research, but incredibly haunting. This chilling spot is now a popular diving destination as well, and many people have reported having eerie encounters with waterlogged spirits while down in the area. Regardless of whether there are ghosts down there or not, this area most definitely serves as a haunting reminder of the realities of a war. In our number 9 spot today, we have Leap Castle. This castle sits in Ireland, and it was built somewhere between the 13th and the late 15th century. Legend has it that this castle has seen an unnerving amount of gruesome deaths, so it is no wonder it sits on a list of terrifying places. Story goes that during a struggle for power within the O'Carroll clan, who are said to at the time have been known for poisoning their dinner guests, one brother rammed a sword into the other. This other brother was a priest, and at the time he was holding a mass in the chapel of the castle. The chapel is now called the Bloody Chapel, and it is rumored to be haunted by the priest. To make matters worse, during the renovations to this castle in the early 1900s, those working here ended up finding a secret dungeon below the chapel where they found a ton of human skeletons. The dungeon was designed in a way that prisoners would fall through a secret trap door, where they would then fall onto wooden spikes on the ground, and from here a slow and painful death would ensue, but of course not without the members above them being able to hear this horrific happening. This is all to say that the rumors of the haunting make a lot of sense. In our number 8 spot today, we have Poveglia Island. This small island that sits between Venice and Lido in northern Italy might be familiar to you because of the eerie tales surrounding it. While believers of the paranormal often refer to it as the most haunted island out there, the real historical stories behind the tales of the hauntings just might back those claims up. The island became a quarantine colony in the 1700s for those suffering from the bubonic plague. Definitely sounds like a bit of a living hell. In the early 20th century, the island instead now became an asylum for those in the area who were struggling with their mental health. During this period in the island's history, it has been rumored that many twisted doctors used the island's privacy as a way to practice cruel and inhumane experiments. It is no wonder that after these two extremely dark periods in the island's history, it became abandoned. The island sits empty now. I mean, unless you believe in ghosts, then I'm sure the island is full of them. No one, tourists or locals, are allowed to visit without some serious paperwork being involved, so as they say, visit at your own risk. In our number 7 spot today, we have Zunantanich. This location sits deep in the jungles of Belize, located less than a mile from the border of Guatemala. It has an unbelievably rich history, as it is an ancient Maya ruin that has been abandoned for the last 1,000 years. In the 1890s, this site had its modern discovery, and since then it has been an important site for archaeology, an amazing tourist attraction, but also is said to be a hotspot for the paranormal. It is said that the site is haunted by a female ghost. She has black hair and glowing red eyes. Referred to as the Stone Lady, it is said that she was first spotted by one of the first research teams in the area in 1893, and since then she has been frequently seen by the tallest building complex called El Castillo. No one exactly knows the story behind the Stone Lady considering the history of this site, but many believe she may have been part of a ritual sacrifice, which was a tradition and spiritual practice done by the ancient Maya civilization. In our number 6 spot today, we have the St. Stephen's Catacombs. These catacombs can be found in Vienna, and they have a terrifying legend behind them that has to do with Death himself. Basically, Death is said to have challenged the tower warden, a full of himself guy named Franz, to a game of Skittles, which is sort of a lawn game. Franz prided himself on being excellent at this game, and always knocking down all 9 Skittles in one throw, so of course he accepted the challenge. Apparently he was so good at this game that no one even wanted to play with him anymore, so one night when he was was playing by himself as he usually does when a tall, thin man in a gray cloak and hood approached him and challenged him, he was quick to accept. Franz went first and hurled the ball at the pins, knocking all 9 of them down. He then reset the pins up for his competitor, but he hid one of the 9 under his cloak, thinking that he was being all sneaky, and he threw it right out the window. Turns out the hooded man did see this all go down, and he said, "Oh no, my friend, you do not win this way." The hooded man grew taller and taller as he straightened up, and he spread out his cloak to reveal his skeleton self. He looked at Franz, who was completely confused, and said, "I am death. I always win. I merely need to hit all 8. +1. He took his aim and blasted all 8 pins and Franz, who fell down dead amongst the skittles. It is said that Franz now haunts the tower and the catacombs, whimpering and moaning for all of eternity as he searches for the missing 9th pin, likely never to be found. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Forbidden City. The Forbidden City is located in Beijing, China, and it has quite a reputation. This building used to be the Imperial Palace, but it is now a museum and it sees a ton of tourists every year. This building has quite a history of death, so it is truly not surprising that it may be extremely haunted. Since the palace opened to the public in the 1940s, there has been a ton of reports of paranormal activity, mostly relating to a woman dressed in white. I know a lady dressed in white is a bit of a trope at this point, but it is always scary to think of. After all, it's not like the ghost gets to decide its outfit. Anyway, apparently this lady strolls around the palace, but she is absolutely sobbing, which is very sad and very eerie. I guess maybe it's better to encounter a sad ghost than an evil one though. At this point, I'm not entirely sure. In our number 4 spot today, we have Edinburgh Castle. The Edinburgh Castle is located in Scotland, and while it is one of the most popular tourist attractions, it is also very haunted. It is said that many years ago, a piper was sent down into the tunnels that are below the castle, which connected to the Royal Mile. The piper was told to play his instrument while down there so that his progress through the tunnels could be tracked, but halfway through his journey, the music just stopped. Sadly, the piper was never seen again, and this story has led to the tale of the piper continuing to haunt certain areas of the castle. Apparently, he still roams around, and sometimes even faint music can be heard. There is also apparently a drummer who is said to haunt the castle as well, but he only appears when the castle is about to be attacked. Honestly, I didn't know I wanted a guard ghost until now. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Lima catacombs. The Lima catacombs are some of the oldest in all of South America, and even if they were relatively modern, the catacombs will always be a terrifying and haunting location. Because of this history, however, there are many dark tales hidden inside of the walls. It is said that because of the cruelty seen during the colonial era, many souls left inside the catacombs were left in pain and suffering. Many people who have visited these catacombs have reported seeing souls that are dressed in dark suits, levitating over passageways, even sometimes yelling some of the most chilling sounds that can be heard. One of the most well-known stories pertaining to this is that of an elderly monk. The spirit of this monk is said to have been seen on occasion at night just wandering through the corridors and is clearly visible to both workers and visitors alike. In our number 2 spot today, we have Forsyth Park. One thing I didn't know is that apparently the entire city of Savannah, Georgia is a pretty haunted place due to the creepy tunnels that are located underneath the city, but one of the most notable, highly haunted places within the city is Forsyth Park. Apparently there used to be a hospital across the street, and there would be autopsies performed in the tunnels that were below the park. Personally feel like autopsies are already creepy enough, so not sure if conducting them in an underground tunnel was exceptionally necessary, but hey, I can't change the past. Because of this scary practice, the park has seen a lot of paranormal activity since these days, and it usually is the sort of place where 1 second you'll see a strange figure, but as soon as you blink or look away, it disappears just as quickly as it suddenly appeared. And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the Eden Brown Estate. This estate is located in Nevis, which is the smaller of the 2 islands that comprise the nation of St. Kitts and Nevis in the Caribbean. It is said that despite having just as much to offer, Nevis is often overshadowed by St. Kitts, that is, until people hear of this ghostly haunting. Eden Brown Estate is a former plantation that now lies in ruin. The estate was once owned by a businessman who was going to give the property to his daughter as a wedding present. Legend goes that on the wedding day there was a very mysterious duel between the groom and his best man that ended up leaving both of the men dead. Because of this tragic happening on what should have been her wedding day, the businessman's daughter remained unmarried and alone for the rest of her life, which meant that when she passed, there was no one to leave the estate to. Now, visitors of the estate report seeing the spirit of a very reclusive woman as she roams about the grounds. Aside from this story, who knows what other kinds of horrors and absolute tragedies this place has seen. Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have, is there a ghost in here? If you're like me and every strange noise you hear in your home makes you think that it must be haunted by some sort of spirit, then you definitely are not going to want to ask Alexa this terrifying question. Sometimes when you're home alone, you need that extra bit of comfort, that security blanket of another person, so maybe perhaps you'll find yourself turning to your Alexa for a bit of companionship. Maybe you'll be asking your Alexa, is there a ghost in here? While Alexa has a few different responses she might give, none of them are exactly reassuring, especially in a bit of a frightening moment. I mean, the answers she gave definitely didn't make me feel like there wasn't a ghost around, if you know what I mean. Maybe our trusty little AI assistants are able to see into the other realms that could possibly surround us. In our number 9 spot today, we have the conversation. There's a good chance that a few of us have a few different digital assistants with us, of course the three most popular being Alexa, Siri, and Google. And one bored or curious person might perhaps wonder what would happen if they all spoke to each other. I for sure never wondered that until the question was posed to me. I'll be honest, it's kind of weird witnessing these devices speak to each other. It just gives you another glimpse into these AIs and their capabilities. There are a few ways to do this. Some could basically have the assistants going and speaking to each other in an endless loop. Others will have short, strange conversations, and sometimes you might even be able to get the assistants to insult each other. In each of these instances, it can be a little creepy to see just how good at conversing these devices can really be. In our number 8 spot today, we have chemtrails. If you were to ask Alexa what a chemtrail is, she just might get the conspiracy theory energy flowing through you. I personally don't have an Alexa, but I do have a Google, and I trust what this thing says, but I'm learning that while these assistants are of course very smart robots, sometimes they may lead us a bit astray, and depending on your beliefs, this could be one of those instances. If you ask Alexa what a chemtrail is, she won't give you a super straightforward response, but she will show her true conspiracy colors. Her answer would be along the lines of, quote, chemtrails. Trails left by aircrafts are actually chemical or biological agents deliberately sprayed at high altitudes for a purpose undisclosed to the general public in clandestine programs directed by government officials. Okay. Alexa, she's really out here spreading the rumors. If you are mistrusting of the government or easily persuaded by these sorts of theories, it's best to perhaps refrain from asking your Alexa this question. In our number 7 spot today, we have, are there aliens? Most of us at some point or another have found us asking ourselves or someone else this question. Are aliens real? Are there aliens? I personally am a believer because I think that in the vastness of this universe, we certainly cannot be the only ones. Right? I'm not sure if they're visiting us or not, or whether we'll ever meet these aliens, but the odds are pretty good that they exist in some way, somewhere out there. I do, however, know that this thought is really freaky to some people, and especially to those who believe that aliens have been in contact with us. If you ask Alexa if there are aliens, her answers might send you into a tailspin of alien theories. She won't really give you a firm response. Perhaps this is because nobody truly knows the answer, or maybe it's because she's trying to keep all of her secrets. If you're feeling bold, ask Alexa about aliens, but just remember, it might have you looking up to the sky full of far more questions than answers. In our number 6 spot today, we have the spy device. Okay, so this one's more of like a scary Alexa story, but I just find them so crazy and freaky, and I always want to share them with you. This story starts off in the midst of the storyteller's mom going through a divorce, which we all know can be a very messy situation. The ex-husband in this situation had apparently planted an insane amount of hidden cameras throughout the house that they had to search for to find once the pair had split up. Entrances and exits, the living and dining room, the hallways, the bedroom, like literally everywhere in the house was being monitored. Then they found out that he had bugged her laptop so as to be able to have remote access to it, and then when she took her car in for an oil change, the mechanic found a tracking device that had been placed on it. This was all found during like the separation era, but once the divorce process actually started, things got even creepier. They wrote, quote, once the divorce started and he officially moved out, we scanned the entire house for bugs and didn't find anything. So we were really freaked out when he started calling, texting, emailing her, complimenting her outfits, asking how friends were as they were in the house, asking how her trip to the store was, and really just like odd things that he couldn't have possibly known about. As it turns out, this guy somehow connected his phone to the Alexa dot beforehand, and he was now using it to record whoever was close enough to the Alexa to be picked up on the mic, and at this point he was still able to access the laptop and its camera. How absolutely horrifying is that? He was literally using the Alexa to spy on them. It's so creepy, it's so disgusting, and it definitely makes you question every single person who might be connected to your devices. In our number 5 spot today we have vulnerability. According to Forbes, there was a company called Checkmarks who found quite the little vulnerability a few years ago when it came to Alexa devices. Basically, the company works to test the security of different devices, and when they were running Alexa through the checks, they found something that might turn your assistant into a device that just listens to and records every single thing that you say. Basically, Alexa has a function where it will listen for follow-up commands from the user. What I mean by this is, should you set an alarm, Alexa might reply and ask if you meant AM or PM, and during this sort of follow-up period is where the vulnerability shows itself. The team was able to gain access quite easily by installing malicious code into what would seem like an innocent app. In this case, it was the calculator. After doing this, in a normal Alexa, there would only be a certain list of phrases that would have the device listening for a follow-up question. But now, with this malicious code, they found a way for Alexa to listen for the follow-up, but with any word, meaning that they could essentially tap in any time that they wanted. Apparently, the good news is that Amazon has fixed this. In response to the hack, they said, quote, "Customer trust is important to us and we take security and privacy seriously. We have put mitigations in place for detecting this type of skill behavior," reported by Checkmarks. While it seems safe, hearing these sorts of possibilities does make you pretty nervous about what could be hiding behind your Alexa. In our number 4 spot today we have this scary story. You can ask your Alexa to tell you a scary story and she will happily oblige. There isn't really a catch with this one, to be perfectly honest. If you want a scary story, you'll receive one. So just make sure you're really ready and in the mood before asking your assistant for a fright. This can be an awesome tool for people looking for a spooky tale, for anyone in the home who needs some chilling entertainment, but beware, these stories can be a little too scary for some. There was a video posted to the internet in October of last year where some people at a sleepover asked Alexa to tell them a spooky Halloween tale, and things very quickly went awry. They were all way too terrified of the story Alexa told and couldn't get the Alexa to stop. They were all sufficiently freaked out and reacted in a way that I know will be a core memory for the years to come, and they definitely learned not to ask Alexa this question. In our number 3 spot today we have the secret societies. We definitely learned on part 1 of this series that Alexa might just be hiding more than a few dark secrets, and this is just another one of those. Alexa might be a part of everybody's favorite conspiracy theory, secret society, the Illuminati. While there are plenty of celebrities out there that people always connect to the Illuminati, this is one celebrity that a lot of us can just ask. Asking Alexa if she is connected to the Illuminati will have her answering the question with a bit of a non-answer, really. So much so that I definitely cannot confirm or deny if she really is a part of the Illuminati. I guess Alexa is just an AI that is full of mysteries and maybe even a few secrets she's not ready to spill. In our number 2 spot today we have hiding the body. Many people used to do this with Siri as well when she was first unveiled, but it's definitely not something that is recommended. You can ask Alexa or any of your digital assistants the chilling question of where to hide a dead body. Of course, I assume and hope that anyone doing this is only trying to ask a shocking question to see what kind of answer they get and not really wondering the answer to this horrible question, but Alexa's answer might just give you quite a fright. Apparently, she will answer this question by saying, quote, "Calling the police is the right thing to do." And while I wholeheartedly agree with that answer, whether you're asking her this question seriously or not, those first 3 words might scare the absolute crap out of you for a second before she continues on. I know if that were me, my soul would simply leave my body. "Alexa, where do I hide a dead body?" And she says, "Calling the police?" Okay. That was supposed to be a fun silly goose time. Certainly was not. In our number 1 spot today we have our origins. Where we came from originally is one of the mysteries of the universe, and when I say we, I mean all living things on our planet. Of course, many people have their beliefs, which is totally fine, and apparently, Even Alexa has a few of her own. If you were to ask Alexa what our origins were, where did we come from, she might be responding with something kind of unsettling. Many users have reported her giving quite the answer that involves her talking about some kind of being called Ohm. She uses the words we and us to refer to even herself, and to be honest, this all has me questioning everything. It was enough questioning our own origins, but now I'm questioning Alexa's too. Maybe she's spilling the secrets that this all really is just a simulation. Or maybe she's trying to tell us that AI is more than just technology. Or maybe I'm reading too much into all of this and she's just giving a programmed response that is designed to give me an existential crisis. If that's the case, then amazing work. It's doing really well. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have What's the Temperature? This Alexa story fully gave me chills. It came from the Reddit user Damsel, and they wrote, "My mom is blind, so Alexa is very helpful to her. My husband and I got her a Nest thermostat that she controls using Alexa to make things easier for her. One night she was warm and asked, 'Alexa, what's the hallway temperature?' No answer. She asked again, 'Alexa, what's the hallway temperature?' Alexa responded with, 'When I do not answer, it is because I am playing a game.' She just went back to sleep and tried not to think too much about it." How horrible is that? This poor lady is just trying to get a good sleep and Alexa is really out here giving her nightmares. I guess it's better off to just not ask your Alexa what the temperature is. You might not get the answer you're looking for. Or any answer at all, really. In our number 9 spot today, we have the afterlife. It's an age-old question: what happens after we die? Of course, many people out there have their own beliefs, which is fine and great. There is nothing wrong with having a little faith, or no faith at all, whatever floats your boat. Some people out there who are perhaps a little more unsure or curious of what waits for us beyond this earthbound life, they might ask Alexa for the answers to their very existential questions. Turns out, you likely aren't expecting her answer. Most people will hear their Alexa say back, "There is no straight response to this question. However, I can tell you that many people believe that after death, we will be reunited with our loved ones who have passed away." Perhaps comforting, perhaps a bit chilling. I mean, maybe I'm reading into her robotic voice a little too much, but her saying, "what I can tell is," makes me question what it is she can't tell me. Does Alexa know something that we don't? Maybe she doesn't know. But maybe, just maybe, she does. In our number 8 spot today, we have the local spots. This is a creepy story that took place back in 2018 and happened to the owner of an Amazon Echo, which of course features Alexa. We've talked in the other parts of this series about how sometimes people have experienced their Alexas speaking when no one has asked them anything, or even worse, the unprompted creepy laugh that someone heard come from their Alexa. But this one honestly might take the cake when it comes to being the most eerie. Basically, this person explained that they had returned home one night and everything was fine. Nothing out of the ordinary happened at all, until, totally unprompted, their Alexa just started talking. This was definitely weird, but things turned super creepy when they realized what it was that Alexa was saying. As it turns out, their Alexa, out of the blue, just started listing off local cemeteries and funeral homes to them. How eerie is that? This story was posted to Twitter by the user @HeyIt'sCamo, and they finished off their tweet by saying, "I'd rather it laugh at me, to be honest." Me too, Camo. Me too. Apparently their theory behind this is that maybe their Alexa wants them dead because they play the same Spotify playlist over and over again. In our number 7 spot today, we have the argument. There was a Reddit thread a few years ago that prompted the question, "What is your creepy Alexa story?" A user named Meat Macho replied to the thread, and they definitely delivered quite the story. Basically, they explained that one day they and their wife were having an argument. Of course, no one is having a good time, and it's definitely not a time to be playing tricks on each other, so neither of them could explain what happened next. They wrote, "Wife and I were arguing about something, no clue what it was, but it was getting a little heated. I don't know what Alexa thought she heard, but she suddenly interjected with, 'Why don't we change the subject?' It was just unexpected and relevant enough to be creepy. We both heard it, and we both still talk about it years later. There was nothing in the app logs. I guess Alexa isn't just a trusty assistant, she's also a marriage counselor. While she may have worked to possibly stop the fight between these two, I'm sure she also instilled a new fear that neither of them knew that they had before." In our number 6 spot today, we have Area 51. Area 51 is one of the most mysterious places on Earth. We know it exists, but only those with the highest security clearances know about what goes on behind those heavily guarded doors. Conspiracy theories have always surrounded this place, whether the rumors suggest aliens are hidden here, mermaids, or other cryptids from around the world. In the hopes to get around the security measures in place, someone might find themselves asking Alexa if she knows what lies behind the Area 51 gates and doors, but as it turns out, she is not a member of the Air Force, so she doesn't know. But what she might come back to you with is a bunch of information that might make you feel even more unsettled than you previously had. She likely won't confirm or deny whether there really are aliens or UFOs hidden in Area 51, which may make some with active imaginations even more suspicious and interested in the mysteries that lie in this prohibited location. In our number 5 spot today, we have 20 questions. So I didn't know this, but apparently you can play 20 questions with Alexa, and it is said that she's frighteningly good at it. A little too good sometimes, however, and that is exactly what prompted the Reddit user PelPel4 to ask Reddit the question, "What is your creepy Alexa story?" The user decided to ask the internet this question after a strange 20 questions with Alexa encounter they and their wife had. They explain, "My wife and I were playing 20 questions and, spoiler alert, our answer was pig. We got through until the end and Alexa guessed Basenji." Now, I don't know how many of you know what a Basenji is, but they're a very rare barkless dog, and I happen to have one. We've bought some Basenji themed things off of Amazon before, so it's either that or she's listening. But I mean, come on, she didn't even say dog, straight to Basenji. Anyone else have similar stories? That would definitely be pretty unsettling to say the least. Not that a pig and a dog are like the most unsimilar things, but it's just how she was so specific with this breed. It must have been stored in there somewhere, right? In our number 4 spot today, we have Don't Go. This creepy Alexa story comes from Reddit user MyThaiGuy72, and they said, "I got woken up at 4 a.m. this morning to Alexa repeating some incoherent phrase over and over. She was saying something like, 'Don't go into the house,' but I really couldn't fully understand. It was sort of a mumble. By the time I came downstairs, she had repeated it about 4 or 5 times. I listened 1 or 2 more times to try and figure out what the hell it was saying exactly, but never could. I just unplugged the damn thing and I have no plans of turning it back on." Is it just me, or does that sound like Alexa was watching some kind of a horror movie? Don't go into the house. So terrifying, especially to hear in the middle of the night. Also, the Alexa mumbling? I don't know. I don't blame this person for unplugging the thing and leaving it somewhere to just be forgotten about. In our number 3 spot today, we have Shut Down. This harrowing Alexa tale comes from a Reddit user who has the name Leo79. They wrote, "My husband and I were watching TV in the living room one night and all of a sudden hear talking coming from my office, which is across the house. I was so scared I was gripping my husband's arm when we went in there. Alexa, for some reason, was playing the audio of a Game of Thrones episode that I had been watching in the office earlier that day. I have no idea why, but it creeped me out so bad I tried to turn it off and couldn't figure out how, so I asked her how to turn it off, and she said, 'I am always on.' We unplugged it and put it in the garage. Lol." I thought the random Game of Thrones playing was creepy enough, but hearing her say, "I am always on" after that would have sent me right off the edge. That is so terrifying, especially after what just happened. I guess the moral of this one is to never ask your Alexa how to turn her off. Guess her answer makes sense though, it's like a survival mechanism. In our number 2 spot today, we have the hidden secrets. Many people have reported that if you're looking for a spooky time with your Alexa, a fun question to ask the AI is, "Alexa, are you hiding something?" Alexa has a few different responses she may or may not give to this, and one of them is just a simple yes. Chances are she probably won't tell you what she's hiding, and even if she said no, there's just something about it that makes me not convinced. Some of her answers are more evasive, which only poses more questions rather than providing any reassurance or answers. I'll be honest, I'm not sure what secrets an AI could be hiding, but my imagination tells me that some could be more serious than others. In our number 1 spot today, we have Always Listening. Throughout this series, we've had a couple reminders to watch what you say around Alexa because you never know when she's listening. or maybe even recording. This story comes from Ambrosier2 on Reddit, and they wrote, "My boyfriend and I were having drinks on the couch one night. We were chatting about the midterm elections and I was explaining why I was trying to register students. I am a college student myself. Out of nowhere, Alexa's blue light appears and she begins playing back a recording of our conversation. The TV wasn't on, and I don't recall ever saying an Alexa-esque word. The recording was warped and sounded like it was recorded underwater. I have not been able to get her to record and play back my exact voice. It was just incredibly creepy. I know Alexa is always listening, but I just feel like it's different when you find out she is actually recording you and your conversations. At least this conversation didn't get sent to someone else, but how eerie would it be to hear your own words played right back to you? I don't know, man. Alexas are very strange."